Sustainability Advisory Board to order on Thursday, September 4th. Emma, could we have a roll call, please?
Margie Davy,
Here.
Vic Oliver,
Here.
Jacob Claymeyer,
Here.
Lisa Moore,
Here.
Alyssa Ranke,
Here.
Jaden Zern,
Here.
Brad Spanbauer,
Here.
Amy Schuler, and Paul Trader.
Here.
9 present, we have quorum.
Thank you. Is there anyone here who would like to make a public comment? I'm guessing not, so we'll move right on to the approval of minutes. Would anyone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the minutes from August 4th? Okay, we'll just take a voice vote on that. All in favor of approving the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Well, that was quick. Now we're ready to get on with the real stuff. Comprehensive Energy Plan presentation from Pale Blue Dot. Tonight we have a guest. We have Ted Redmond here.
Thank you.
And you have the floor.
Excellent, great. Thank you very much for letting me show up today and share some time with you. I've got, thought I would just kind of go through a high-level overview and then certainly answer any questions anybody has or any dialogue. Just as a brief, by way of introduction, I'm Ted Redmond with Pale Blue Dot. My background, I'm a registered architect in the state of Minnesota, practiced traditional architecture for a number of years, but arrived at sort of a midlife epiphany and decided to shift gears. And about 13 years ago, I gave my partners a heads up that I was going to be doing something else. Wasn't sure what it was. And then over the year, designed Pale Blue Dot with my partner, Colleen. And so we focus on hastening the transition to a carbon-free economy. We do that through a number of different services, but we think of it, we lump it all together in climate action. So we do climate action plans, we do sustainability plans, we do renewable energy plans. We've done work as we support a couple of DOE projects. We're technical advisors for solar work, but largely we work with municipalities and counties. So we've done, as of now, we're at about 90 local governments of some sort, whether it's city or county, that we've done this kind of work with. Not necessarily this kind of plan, but within that realm that I've talked about. So we're very excited to work with Oshkosh, and we've been very grateful to do that. So with that, I'll just kind of go through the plan. I thought what I would do, okay, that is light, right? I have my laptop in front of me just in case there's a question I can zero in, and then I throw myself off because it doesn't move.
Real quick, Ted, before we start, this is not a PDF, this is just from our online version. Would it be more, we'd have more space if we opened up the PDF? Would that be better, you think, or?
I think this should work.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, as long as I can zoom in and out when needed, I think it should work.
Okay.
So again, just kind of a high level, I thought it'd be good to kind of share with you kind of what the plan is, why the plan is, how did we do the plan, and then probably focus on the roadmap itself, some of the strategic goals that we recommend, and then anything you guys want to talk about. So in terms of the purpose of the plan, the RFP that we responded to and the grant that the city submitted to Focus on Energy, the state program, outlined there's really sort of 3 primary purposes of the plan. So the energy plan, when we're all said and done, wants to help the city meet carbon reduction targets, wants to help reduce operational costs, and importantly wants to help guide proactive energy upgrades. Give some steps, a menu of actions that can be integrated into or considered for integration into municipal operations to help sort of move towards those goals. The process that we went through had sort of 5 kind of foundational steps to get us to then creating a draft plan. The first was data collection, simply. Collecting lots of information from the city. Brandon was massively important and helpful on that. And collecting data from the utility. WPS was extremely helpful, by the way. They were very readily answering questions, and they went back to the well a couple of times, so it was very helpful. But just collecting data on the facilities. We then did energy benchmarking. The benchmarking that we did was for all of the major facilities, and then a couple of the sort of key sites within parks, but we didn't benchmark every single building in the city's portfolio. You know, say a shed in a park or something like that. Not that it's not important, but just to sort of focus on where we knew the biggest potentials were. So that energy benchmarking exercise took the reported energy consumption for those focused buildings, electricity and natural gas. We entered that data into Energy Star Portfolio Manager, and so it created property accounts for all of those that the city can use moving forward if it wishes. And then benchmark that energy use intensity, EUI, the amount of energy that it uses, against peer facilities, similar peer facilities nationally. And as part of that, then, we just sort of mapped out, what we were trying to do is kind of feel out where are the potential outliers. So comparing each of those subject properties against the average within the Energy Star Portfolio Manager system, and flagged anything that was higher than average. Now, I hasten to say that just because something is higher than average, it does not necessarily mean that it's bad. There could be really good reasons for it. Likewise, just because something is on average does not necessarily mean that there aren't opportunities to advance. But what that helps us do is flag, boy, if these were our properties, where would we maybe want to look first for opportunities for energy efficiencies? If we were going to do a building audit, energy audit, where might we put that first? So we're trying to help prioritize where potentials might lie. So that energy benchmarking helped us do that. And then we flagged, we prioritized based on that, and also estimated potential, order of magnitude potential savings that might be available if that building were to be made more efficient to hit average. Okay. The next step we did was solar site reviews. I like to think of them as solar snapshots. That we did look at all of the properties, all of the parks, and we were just trying to get a sense as to where might the best, or which properties might be reasonably good fits for solar. So we just wanted to get a good sense of it. We didn't do a deep assessment. We wanted to look at all the conditions, get a good sense for what kind of insolation, how much solar power those buildings might receive in a given year, and start to prioritize those. Sites that we thought, hey, this is maybe good enough, we suggest doing a detailed assessment, and sites that, down to sites where, I don't think that's gonna be a good solar site. So out of that exercise, the prioritized sites, we prioritized 33, I think, specific sites, buildings, to do a detailed solar feasibility assessment. And for those, we actually designed example arrays for each property, put it through solar modeling to identify how much power might an array, that type of an array, how much power might that generate in a year? How does that compare to the building's annual consumption? Took the information from the example array that was created, put together an order of magnitude example project budget in today's dollars. What might it cost to install that array? And then we generated a 30-year return on investment. So 30-year solar arrays. A 30-year is what most designers will target. A solar array should live for 30 years without real much problem. You will hear horror stories. There are some that did not, and a lot of that has to do with there were sort of Wild West periods of the market where there were installers that maybe weren't doing things that they should be doing. So there are arrays that did not last that, but by and large they should last at least 30 years. So we put together return on investment projections and then sort of summarized that. So there are 33 sites where there's that kind of detailed information put together. And then, so all of that sort of background stuff helped us then noodle out what are some potential actions that the city could take to organize itself to achieve some of these energy advancements. And so those then went into what we're calling the roadmap. The roadmap is a plan intended to guide integration of energy goals into city operations. It can do that through 5 strategies, or sometimes I'll describe them as strategic goals, that outline sort of buckets of goal and focus area. Those 5 strategies then are supported by a menu of 25 detailed actions of steps that the city can take over time to support and achieve those strategies. And the intent is that that would be implemented over a 10-year implementation timeframe. Now, one thing you'll note when we talk about the strategies, which I'll go through next, some of those, or many of them, have kind of a 2-step goal where we talk about a 2035 goal, so a 10-year implementation, and then some that we illustrate a 2040 goal. 2040 goal is what we're trying to say is, think of 2035 as a good target for now, but maybe there's some place that we can go further. And is it 2040? Should it be 2045? Should it be 2050? I mean, that's something that the city can work through. The detailed steps are intended to get you to 2035. And then the idea, we always suggest, think of plans as a living document. So, it could get updated along the way, or you might do a hard reset, a redo, update in 2035. And that goal for 2040, maybe you decide to push it out to 2045 or whatever, right? So we're just trying to paint a long-term picture. So think of 2040 with a grain of salt, if you will. Okay. So the result, actually, I might skip over this. I can hit this on the end, I think, a little bit more effectively. So with that, I'll just kind of go through the energy roadmap. Everybody read that okay?
There should be a plus, yeah, that plus.
There we go. Okay. So this is really just kind of preamble, kind of like what some of the findings before and kind of what the intent of the roadmap is, which I think I've kind of illustrated, but I'm happy to go through anything through questions. So we've put up front the sector goals, the goals of the roadmap here. And the goals are expressed in 2 ways in the document. This way sort of summarizes kind of numbers. Give me some numbers. Like, hey, when you're said and done with this, we want to see our electricity in this draft plan. It could change based on everybody, where the city goes here. But in this draft plan, we're saying, hey, we're currently at 18.9 gigawatt hours worth of electricity. By 2035, we want to see that at 16.6. By 2040, or again, keep that with the grain of salt, we want to see it go down to 15. So we've got reduced electricity consumption, reduced natural gas consumption, increased renewable electricity, which we're representing as both on-site as well as purchased. Some properties just aren't going to be good performers for on-site. So you do not want to put solar on a building that isn't a good place for solar. That's just, we don't want to do that. But there's no reason we could purchase renewable through the utility, through solar, a community garden, things of that nature, through renewable energy credits. So there's avenues. And then we're also suggesting increasing the electrification and fuel switching. So what that means is actions and strategies to reduce combustion of fossil fuels on site, natural gas for heating and such, and transitioning to either renewable fuels or electrification, when we're not combusting on site, or if we are combusting, it's renewables, and we are not adding to the overall carbon budget. And then all of those add up to reduced greenhouse gas emissions. We're currently estimated at 15,000 metric tons for our building stock in annual emissions. Through this plan, by 2035, we're saying that's aimed for 5.6 thousand, and by 2400, that's aimed for 0. So that's one way that we're stating the goals, and we're giving numbers that you could actually kind of guide by in terms of electricity consumption and so forth. The other way that we're stating the goals then is in the actual strategy statement itself. They align with each other, but these are then worded in terms of percent reduction as opposed to those hard numbers. And then they're just phrased a little bit differently, a little bit more detailed. So we've got 5 strategies The first one is to improve total City of Oshkosh building and site energy use intensity, which is EUI, by 12% by 2035 and 20% by 2040. EUI, by the way, is measured as a total kilobtu per building area. That's just standard wonkyism. That's how everybody measures EUI. And I'll say that both the 12% and the 20% are within the amount of energy savings that the energy benchmarking indicates could be there if we were to put all of the city facilities on average energy consumption. We would be able to meet or beat those numbers. Now, again, we're also recognizing that just because a building's high doesn't mean that it can come down. So those numbers are backed down from that because of the recognition that that's a benchmarking exercise. There's going to be things that we discover when you do detailed audits. There's then a menu of 8 detailed actions that can be implemented to support that. These detailed actions are, the intent is that as the city implements over a 10-year time frame, city can identify which actions to move forward at which time. We always recommend to think of this, when you decide to do certain things is a complex matrix. Who's available to do something? What other projects is the city working on? What capital projects are already planned? You got to figure all that out, and where can you get the best bang for the buck? All these things kind of go through a process, and we suggest that can just be a part of an annual sort of evaluation of a mini plan for each year. Identifying the things that we're going to move forward this year. That's usually what we suggest. Each of these then also we suggest metrics. So that's not brain surgery. It's just saying, hey, here's a couple tidbits of information. If you collect that, you can know how you're doing on that number, right? But just trying to be helpful. The next strategy is to increase adoption of high-performance building construction technology. In doing that, achieving 1% net zero buildings within the City of Oshkosh building portfolio by 2030 and 5% by 2040. And that percentage would be measured on a square foot basis. And we also further, we talk about how we suggest, we have a suggestion in there in the draft, saying that for the city to hit that, you could consider either full-on net zero. And a net zero building is first a building that's energy efficient, and secondly, it produces enough energy on site to meet its annual need. There is also net zero ready, which meets the energy efficient idea and could have enough on-site renewable to meet its full annual need, but does not yet have the renewable on. That is net zero ready. So what we're suggesting is the city could consider, we're meeting our goal if we've got either net zero and or net zero ready. Because maybe there's a reason why you haven't put on-site renewables for some reason on that site yet. Right? But we're moving in that right direction. That strategy then has 4 detailed actions, a menu of 4 detailed actions that can help support that. The third strategic goal is to implement fuel switching on the City of Oshkosh facilities from on-site fossil fuel combustion to non-fossil fuel sources, achieving 20% fuel switch by 2035 and 40% by 2040. And then we clarify, includes transition to either electrification or renewable fuels. Renewable fuels, we tend to define renewable fuels as fuels which are literally generated through renewable energy. There's not a lot of it right now. There are a number of places that are working on it. There's a great pilot project going on in St. Cloud, Minnesota right now. But basically, if you're familiar with fuel cell technology, where you can take hydrogen, run it through a fuel cell, you get energy and water vapor basically. Well, you can take renewable electricity from, say, a windmill or solar excess energy and send it through, I'm oversimplifying it, I'm an architect, not an engineer. Basically run it through a fuel cell in reverse, and you can produce a synth fuel out of it. That synth fuel you can use for natural gas, you can convert it into diesel, you can also even convert it into ammonia, which could also be converted into fertilizer. It's a really promising technology, I think. It isn't exactly available right now. I mean, there's a couple pilot projects. There's a lot of us that are seeing a lot of activity. I believe, if we can keep on the path, that within the span of this project, a 10-year implementation, my hope is that we'll see it available to some extent. So that's just an illustration of what might be, in addition to electrification, some options.
You don't call out heat pumps here, but is that what you're talking about with
Yeah,
electric options?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a detailed way that you can meet that.
Okay.
So there's a menu of 5 detailed actions that can be implemented to help support that within operations. And then our fourth strategic goal is to achieve 50% renewable electricity for all city operations by 2035 and 100% by 2040. I'll be honest here, that the 50% I think is reasonably achievable. It takes investment. I mean, it takes the idea of getting some on-site solar, looking into other options. Are there group purchase programs? Are there community solar options that we want to get into, et cetera? But it's pretty achievable. It's achievable within the solar opportunities on city facilities, put it that way. Of course, it requires an investment, but that investment should have a return on investment. The 100% is a taller order. You can't really get to 100% on on-site solar, so that means some form of purchase would need to happen. So that's why we're saying, keep 2040 as, we can change it even, but that's more of it's a visionary goal. 2040 is less intended to be a specific goal. The 2035s are intended to be a specific target. In the meantime, the WPS has a long-term goal to hit to carbon-free. So I think we'll eventually meet there. So the 2040 might be tough to hit. 2035 I think is doable, but it will take focus to get there. There's 4 detailed actions to support that strategic goal. And then, I do point out, there's a whole page on renewable energy certificates or renewable energy credits, RECs, and I kind of reiterate it here. It's something important to know. It gets really wonky. I wish it wasn't this way. RECs get a bad rap. RECs are important and they're good. What a REC does is, once an electron is in the grid, nobody knows where it came from. So I plug my toaster into an outlet. Nobody can tell me where that electricity came from. You cannot do it because it's a mix. Whatever goes in the grid comes from everything. So coal plants, all that stuff. Renewable energy credits allow producers of renewable energy, when they send it into the grid, to record. I just sent, a megawatt into the grid. Here's a REC that proves that I did it and records it. Whoever owns the REC, whoever controls the REC, gets the right to say that they are using the green benefit, the green attributes from that renewable electricity. Okay? It's really cerebral, it's really goofy, it's really important when we're talking at a grid level though. So utilities use this all the time, rightfully so. They're trying to increase the renewable energy that they have. They can either build solar plants or they can buy electricity, because they buy electricity from each other all the time. So they can choose to buy electricity that's from a renewable source. They get RECs and they retire them on behalf of their clients. So that's an appropriate mechanism for accounting it. I pointed out just because there's lots of situations that the city could get into where a developer might offer deals to the city where the RECs do not go, where the green attributes of solar investments do not go to the city. I'm not going to tell you that that's good or bad. I just want the city to know that there's a difference and to know what you're getting into before you get into it so that you can make sure that it aligns with your goals and that it can be accounted for correctly. So we've kind of gone to pains to make sure we're kind of alerting that in a couple of spots. Not trying to be judgmental, we're just trying to say these are mechanisms and you want to be aware of how they work. Lastly, our last strategic goal is maintain appropriate funding to support the plan implementation. And there's 4 detailed actions in there. one of my favorites, which I will kind of just throw out here. Most cities, when there's energy savings or when there's dollar savings from some energy savings investment or renewable energy investment, most cities will take that savings and it just kind of goes into the general account. And I totally get it, because it can be hard to track. It's an accounting consideration, and the general budget's really important. Cities have to work really hard to cover the whole general budget. I get it. I totally get it. I love to suggest wherever I can, hey, how about if you consider putting a policy in place that says when we do an investment to increase energy efficiency, the energy savings, we're going to account for that stuff, and we're going to create a little fund over here, a little kitty. And it's not going to be very big the first year, but it keeps, and you take that and you reinvest it. What's our next project, or what can we do to increase energy efficiency, and then track that. And then the savings you start collecting up to create a little engine to help fund some things. It won't be the only mechanism that you may need or want to fund, but it's an important consideration to think about. And I recognize it's not necessarily easy to do, so I fully recognize that. But I think it's a good potential. And so with that, I am going to scroll to this and talk about plan impacts from this. And I should have flagged this before, that we're in the process, this is a draft plan. It's what we think is right, but we're also going to go through, and you're going to see some of the numbers are going to change as we double, triple check stuff, and decide like, hey, I think, so some things are going to change. You'll see numbers move around a little bit. We're not trying to be cagey. We're just trying to end up with the best plan that we can for the city that's as appropriate as we can make it. So with that, the implementation of successful implementation of the plan, if we are able to hit those strategic goals, we hit those numbers, there's a number of overall benefits, like decreasing negative environmental impacts on the city of operations, reducing reliance on fossil fuels, long-term greenhouse gas emission reductions, developing infrastructure and building projects that include sustainability features from the start. Because some of these things you can't do without making sure we're amping up our game there. Not that the city isn't already, but taking the next step even. And protecting natural resources. Some of the modeled savings, though, based on those strategic goals, achieving those strategic goals would save 2.2 million kilowatt hours annually, 172,000 therms annually. We would be consuming 8.8 million kilowatt hours through renewable electricity annually, and an annualized cost savings of about 300,000. That number out of all of them it's a little funky, because some of these things take an investment, and then you don't save money until after that investment is paid off. So what we've done, just to be transparent, we take the lifetime ROI, and then we divvy it up on a per year basis. So by year 20, it's saving a lot more money than it's saving up front, but we've annualized it. So the first few years, that number is not real. I mean, I hate, what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to help represent what does this mean on an annual basis, but you can't really. But we do have an appendix that's referenced that kind of shows the math of how we got there, and where did we get numbers, and that includes projected, if we're aiming for X percentage, roughly based on like ACEEE, how much money might we need to invest to save 10%, et cetera. So we're trying to account for potential expenses as well as potential offsets. So the numbers as real as we can make it at this level of a plan, at this guidance level. Greenhouse gas reductions by 2035, we will have reduced if we successfully meet those goals, we will have reduced 62% of our building operations emissions. And by 2040, again, think of that as maybe it's 2050, but we would be at net zero. So. Any questions or anything else anybody wants me to show?
So if anybody does have any questions, let me call on you, okay? So we don't all start talking at once. I think we can maybe give this 15 minutes for questions if we need to. Does anyone have any questions? Maybe we don't need to give it any time. Jake?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation and the detailed report here. Yeah, I was trying to follow some of the ROI calculations, so I'm glad that you kind of put those caveats on it, that there were some assumptions taken and it's kind of at a large scale, right? I would be curious, though, if any of those solar evaluations for any of those buildings could be represented in an ROI basis, like with a little bit more confidence for like a singular building. Perhaps, I know that there are like efficiency savings that are baked into ROI, but just like the return on the investment of, say, like that, a solar system that you've detailed out in expense and also the kilowatt hour savings for that. I think that could perhaps provide a little bit more tangible results. But my question is there a baseline source of data that's in the plan as well? I think I saw on a table there was the EUI versus the baseline in percentage or 100-something percentage basis, right? Is there like a nominal amount that is provided anywhere in the report? So like this building consumes this many kilowatt hours per year. I was kind of looking for that information as like the baseline.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Ted, I should have warned you, he is an engineer.
Yeah, I like the detail. Yeah, that's good. So he's my foil. It's good. Architects need that. Yeah, that's a great point, and I think we don't necessarily show it. It's in all of our spreadsheets. Just all we need to do is change the view to expose that, so we can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jake.
Yeah, I think that just provides more like, this is what we're consuming right now, you know, not just how are we perform against the baseline. I think could help at least me wrap my head around it. I had another question though too. It's like, how does this plan relate to any? It seems like we're reducing our electrical expenditure or electrical use on these existing buildings. I think we've had this conversation before. Like, what about any new buildings or any capacity planning that we're planning, or was that considered at all in the plan, I guess? If there's other, is it just the existing infrastructure is the question?
I think it's represented in strategy 4, or maybe it was 3, where it talks about the 1%. The building square footage of being net zero or net zero ready.
Okay.
I think it's covered there, yeah.
Yeah, and I think so. Our work itself has been based on the portfolio as it exists, or as it existed when we started. Really, I mean, I don't think anything's happened, but because we started with, okay, let's collect data, and then that's what we worked on. So things will always change, but I think all of those strategic goals, I can reconsider this. All of those allow for the expansion or change of the portfolio, because when we talk about increasing energy efficiency, we're talking about an average EUI. So technically, you could get there by, well, whichever the biggest EUI consumer is, let's just get rid of that building and we don't do that anymore, and you could read it, right? I mean, I know you're not going to do that. I'm not suggesting it, but that was a dumb example. But what I'm trying to say is that as soon as, whatever happens with the portfolio, you definitely, as you add new buildings, you want to think about your energy goals. But as long as you do that, then they'll already be ahead of the curve, and they should be lower maybe than the average target for EUI. So they can feed into that.
Okay.
So the numbers that will get wonky are those first, where we say the sector goals and we say X number of kilowatt hours, Y number of kilowatt hours by 2035. If you double or triple your building stock, for instance, those numbers are going to get wonky. But the actual goals percentages should hopefully still be a guiding light.
Okay, that helps, yeah.
Anyone else have any questions? Paul?
I'll chime in. Regarding the alternative or renewable energy sources, and I know probably the best technology is solar, and I'm sure that's one of the reasons you focus on that. Any consideration for some other emerging technologies, such as, I've been doing a little research, there are now turbines that can generate electricity, such as in the Fox River. We have that as a potential energy source. I know nuclear gets a bad rap, but actually that's another potential, I would think, in the long run, although it might be a bigger upfront investment, but once it's in place, you've got a 50-year lifetime or something like that. There are a lot of countries that are using that. And then including geothermal as, for the efficiencies that you can get there, is another way to reduce your overall electricity consumption. Has any of that been taken into account, or would you in the future?
Yeah, it's yes and yes. So it is included to an extent. So now we didn't model. So something like nuclear, if we're thinking of it in terms of like larger scale, utility scale nuclear, then that's something where the focus of our plan was to look specifically at city facilities. So then that would be anything that can be done distributed, solar distributed, rooftop, etc. You could also very readily look at small scale wind. The challenge with wind is to really model that in a way that you can feel at all confident about what you're saying. You need to run wind tests at each specific site, and that just isn't in the scope. But the project scope couldn't allow for that.
Totally agree on that.
But absolutely, that's a potential strategy. There's no doubt about it. That could be, especially the really like the small ones you can see on a building or in the park. I mean, those things can help contribute. You could also potentially, maybe there's a megawatt turbine somewhere that you end up looking at, right? Or a half a megawatt or something. So that's definitely, we would not discourage that. Those just take a different kind of study to see if that makes sense somewhere. And then geothermal, in terms of renewable energy, we actually classify, so geothermal is another wonk. If it's large enough that if the geothermal well has enough heat in it that we can actually generate electricity out of it, then it's a renewable energy strategy. But in most instances, geothermal wells, like in this building, if we dump a well in the parking lot, you're not going to have enough to necessarily generate electricity, but you can harvest that energy and use that for heating the building or reducing the amount. So
exactly.
For those of us in like building design, we tend to think of that as a renewable energy strategy.
Right. I've had geothermal at my house since 2010, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, at least it makes whatever electricity you use go further, if you will, or
absolutely
use less of it overall.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful strategy. And that would be an example of how you might satisfy some of those detailed actions in the energy efficiency, and or the net zero building.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Brad?
Hi, Ted. I'm the council liaison, and I'm also the sustainability director for UW Oshkosh. This is a phenomenal plan. I know it says draft, but I think this is a great first draft. I'm sure my colleagues would agree. Very detailed, very excellent. I'm wondering if you all, and then maybe Brandon and Emma, could also what's kind of the remainder of the timeline for wrapping up this and getting it to the next phases?
Do you want to?
Well, I mean, we kind of talked about it today. We were thinking if any of you have comments, I don't know if you've gotten to look at the whole thing, it's pretty lengthy, right? But if you have comments generally, if you could get those to Emma or I within the next, what do we think, like 2 weeks, like the 22nd, I think is a Monday.
Okay.
That would be appreciated, because then we would review those, turn those back over to Ted, and then he's confident that he can have a final to us the week before your next meeting, because we would be looking hopefully for you guys to recommend approval of the council at the next meeting for this.
Okay.
So we were pretty confident that it's in a good place.
And I'll just reiterate. I did say so we think it's a draft plan, which means some things can change. We did try to kind of get it to complete, and we've double checked stuff. But there's some things I want to triple check, and I know some numbers you're gonna see some things moving around with values. But other than that, content should be. It's just whatever we get out of.
Did I have my dates correct? Was that?
Yeah, I was just double checking, and I think because then you said getting the plan to you. You have to distribute on the 29th, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that works. Yep. I'm just making sure it's right in my schedule.
I'm also really glad you mentioned essentially kind of creating establishing maybe a policy for creating the fund for kind kind of continual investment into energy efficiency projects through the savings, right? So we realize the savings, those funds are diverted to create the fund to kind of keep that positive feedback loop going, which I think is a great strategy. I'm curious your thoughts on, so you mentioned about sort of the REC's landscape and potential on-site renewables and those attributes potentially being sold or not being offered to the city. I'd be curious your thoughts on the degree to which we should have language in here or language in future policy about additionality.
Yeah, I think we could put something in here to get to that sort of specificity. I feel like that might be best in a policy statement that you create, because that way you can kind of think about these goals in a holistic way along with all other city goals and needs to then decide what policy statement you would want to make, if any. We're happy to put something in, though, if the city wants us to. We just have to figure out what that is. And because that can be kind of nuanced, that's why I think it might be better
at the city level.
Yeah. But what we definitely want to make sure everybody understands is that RECs play a role. RECs are not bad. And the city could decide that, we're going to get into some renewable projects where we don't own the REC, but it's going to provide community-wide benefits, and the RECs are going to stay within the community, whatever, right? So you might decide where we will move into things that our municipal emissions don't necessarily go down because of this, but our community emissions will. And I'm not saying you should, I'm just saying that could be a thing.
I have two more things, if that's okay. Related to that, so I know, I'm going to assume that this plan was kind of drafted with the kind of Wisconsin public utility policy all in mind, that like independent entities cannot act as a public utility. Okay. Because I know there's some of that is being challenged or attempting to be challenged in the courts right now, which I think is valid. To what degree would you encourage us in the plan, or would you implement in the plan to facilitate? I love the stuff about the solar and citing the solar, and I love all of your data here, and I understand that those numbers may change, but I also know, and I see that you have noted here about the Inflation Reduction Act tax credits and the recent policy changes that are going to impact those. I do know that there is sort of there's a bit of a wiggle room, particularly for like installations that are 1.5 megawatt or less, as long as 5% of the project expenditure happens before the end of this calendar year. Is that something you would lay out as a higher priority to make the use of those tax credits before they would change, or what's your professional opinion on that?
So we tried to explain that they're going away, but we didn't get much deeper than that. And the only reason why we didn't is that as of the writing, so things change at a rapid pace right now.
Yeah,
but,
you're kidding.
As of the writing, we were finding conflicting sources on what was actually going to, where the ITC cutoff really was. The end of the year was clear, but does that mean completed? And some sources at the government level were saying completed and connected to the utility and all going. And others said underway. And so because there's conflict, we didn't see a clear rectification of those,
Sure.
so we didn't want to touch it.
Totally fair.
But I will say, absolutely. If there's any chance for free money, use it. However, that comes with all sorts of caveats, because you still have to have the capacity to do a project,
Right.
And so I would just forewarn that, that could be a big ask. And does the city have a budget to take on a project, or
Sure.
So.
No, appreciate that.
Was that your last one?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jaden?
I was just curious, and perhaps this isn't in scope, but are there expected, appreciable, measurable benefits or implications for resiliency at the city level?
That's a great question, and within the focus of an energy plan per se, I think it's difficult to measure. However, at a sort of a generalized statement, I think that there's resilience in each of these kinds of goals. So you increase the energy efficiency, you're using less energy. That is a resilience strategy. It's not a hardening against tornadoes or something like that, but it does increase the resilience of a facility. Renewable energy absolutely is a resilient strategy if coupled with storage. I say that because for those of you who may or may not be familiar with solar, I like pointing this out too. If you have a solar panel on a building, a solar array on a building, and the grid goes out in your area, that solar array will stop feeding your building because they shut it down, unless it's connected to storage. And that's so that we don't electrify people working on the grid, because they don't necessarily know that you're pumping in so many kilowatt hours and they go to fix the grid. So that's a code requirement that happens. But if you connect it to a storage system, batteries, you can then harvest that electricity, and that's a resilience strategy, because now the grid goes down, but your solar's still working, you're pumping power into your batteries, and then you can decide what you power with that. So that's an example of a great resilience strategy relative to renewables. By the way, as long as I'm doing it, I can't help it. There's a group called Footprint Project. That's an example of how you can take batteries to the next level. You can they do distributed solar arrays. So hurricane hits, they go to wherever the hurricane hits. They bring mobile solar arrays connected with battery systems, and they can get neighborhoods so that they can, at least if somebody needs kidney dialysis or whatever, it's a stopgap to keep the neighborhood from totally falling apart. Cities could do that. You could have mobile battery systems connected to your solar array that on day-to-day basis you're using it just to increase the benefit of your solar array. But storm hits, pull that battery out, roll it into some area that needs it for a little micro power. So it's something to think about.
Okay, we'll see no other hands. If anybody does find that you have a question that pops into your head between now and September 22nd, go ahead and send the question to Emma, and she'll see that Ted gets it, okay? Thank you so much, Ted. That was very, very interesting. And if Brad likes it, we love it.
You can go there. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Maybe on a fly on the wall just for a little bit. I like hearing other stuff that you're doing.
Okay, well, let's move on then to our sustainable activities and events announcement. Do we have anything this month?
Sorry, I forgot to prepare that section, so I would, if anybody else has some ideas though of what's going on.
If I may, Music on Main every Wednesday night and through the end of the month. It's free, so no charge, so we can promote that. And they do have some good artists. And it's outside nice weather, inside crummy weather.
And where's that located?
5:30 to 7 at the by the Grand Theater in the square.
Opera House Square, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Okay, I don't have anything either, so let's move on to our sustainability plan update subcommittee discussion and action. I'm going to ask Emma to kind of give us a quick overview of what we're doing here before we do it.
Yeah, so the conversation's changed a little bit since we last met. Staff had touched base with Grave. They would like to continue. The idea is to create a subcommittee to work on a chapter and get it to where SAB wants it and where staff wants it. And that chapter that was selected was the Land Uses and Economic Development chapter. So the subcommittee would be to create 3 core members to essentially review that committee, 3 being that we don't need to notice it. And we're hoping that this group can turn that around within the next 2 weeks, so that same timeline as the comprehensive energy plan comments. So hopefully by the 22nd. But yeah, so today you're just voting on creating a subcommittee and then who would be on that committee. Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's it. Yep.
Okay, would anybody like to make a motion that we create a subcommittee?
So moved.
Second.
Let's vote on that separately. Everybody agree? Okay, if you agree, say yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Is anybody opposed? I'm assuming we don't have any discussion on that because we had it at the workshop. Then the next thing we need to do is decide who is on that subcommittee. There would be 3 of us, and what I would like to recommend is that we have a core group that works on all of it, and then we can sub people in and out or add. Now, can we add a 4th person and then we just notice the meeting? Or
So, sorry, I should have included this. So the only chapter as of now that the subcommittee is for that land uses chapter, and with the thought of turning that around to Grafe, showing them what we would like to see, and then maybe then the next draft that the board would see would be all of the chapters. So this is kind of step 1. I don't know if the subcommittee would be needed for all of the other chapters. We're not going to piece every chapter out and send that to them separately. We're hoping that this will kind of be that model chapter.
okay, so we basically just need a core team for this one chapter.
Correct.
And then we'll see if we need anything beyond that.
For now.
For now, yep.
Okay. Well, I'm going to nominate me.
Second.
Does any?
I think technically you can appoint
Okay.
as a chairperson.
Okay, well then I appoint me. And I'm also going to appoint Lisa because she has had so much experience with this and is going to be able to make sure that we get everything in the right spot, I think. And I really appreciate the fact that, you know, you took a job doing that so you could learn it for us. So thank you very much, Lisa. We do appreciate that.
Happy to help.
And then we can have one more person if we're working on the land uses chapter. What is it, land use and what else?
Economic development.
Economic development, okay.
It's kind of like in our wheelhouse too, so it's like, you know,
Easier for you all to
Right.
facilitate.
Yes.
Yes.
So with your guys' help and us, it seemed
Be-
like a good one to work
If
on.
I can quick interject, because the subcommittee can also meet with you all, correct? You
Correct.
don't factor into the need to.
Yep, so we
They
could have
don't
like
include in
Emma
our
and
count.
myself and then the 3 people, yeah.
Okay. Well, in that case, if it's land uses and environmental, the only concern I would have would be, and I'm not asking Brad because he's like mega, ultra, too busy. But we may ask him to look at everything afterwards and make sure we got it right. But in that case, I would, in my mind, this would go between Vic and Jake.
I would respectfully decline.
Okay.
I'd like to help, and I can help, but I do have some conflicts.
And that's
but
another
if it's-
thing. Are we
right.
going to be meeting? I don't
think
know what your
virtually I'd be
schedule is, or
available, yeah.
We'd have to meet very soon. I'll be gone next week in Stoughton and then a conference the following week, so.
so you're talking this week?
Well, Monday, Tuesday.
I was going to say,
Monday,
it's Thursday
Tuesday,
today.
And we knew that this might be a problem, so
Yeah.
again, dependent on when you guys can meet, like we were trying to, you know, we'd like to try to set a deadline, but understanding too that everybody here mostly works full-time. So like it's difficult. So again, we can work on the time frame, but if you know, put
Okay,
together a
well-
subcommittee, we can figure out the schedule later.
So we could have an initial meeting that includes Lisa, and she can kind of give us a little map. And then 2 other people can work with me and you on fleshing that out a little bit more if we need to, right?
We didn't specifically discuss that, but that seems reasonable.
You said
But
3.
I think they need to be appointed.
The subcommittee.
Yeah, they have to be
Tonight.
appointed tonight, yeah.
Otherwise, it'd have to come back to the board.
To be reappointed?
So realistically, if it's yourself and Lisa and you pick one more, and you and Lisa can meet with us one time, and you and the other person can meet a different time, it's still just those 3.
Whatever
Yeah.
time, okay.
If it's by the 22nd, I can make that work.
How about you? What's your schedule?
I'm leaving on a road trip from the 10th to the 17th for
Okay.
different family reasons, but yeah, Tuesday,
there.
Monday,
Okay.
Tuesday and such of the next week I'd be available in town, yeah.
Okay. And you have after work availability?
Yeah, I'm here till the 18th. And then after that, I can't.
Okay. Alyssa, I'd just like to know what your schedule is, please.
I don't go anywhere for fun, so it would just be working around my normal hours, which are hybrid and flexible. So if we needed to meet during like 9 to 5 hours, I could make that work.
As can I.
Okay, well then it's going to be me, and I'm appointing Lisa and Alyssa for this initial chapter.
Great.
And we'll see what else happens after that.
Yeah.
So you guys need to stay later so we can figure out a schedule.
Okay.
Too bad I forgot to bring my calendar. I just wasn't realizing it was that fast. But that's great. Let's get this show on the road, right? Yeah. And I did understand you to say that the consultant said yes, they want to continue to work with us, right? Or they're basing it on this.
As of now, yes. We'll leave it at that. I don't
Okay.
know. We'll have to see what happens. Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to see if they like us, huh? Got it. Let's move on then to, oh, actually, when is our next farmer's market?
Was it in October?
October 11th.
So we do have one more meeting before that. Okay. In that case, we can just go to agenda items for future meeting. We have down Summer Farmers Market, which we'll have to talk, we'll have to talk about that at our October meeting. And we also have resiliency and rain barrel credits, neither of which is as high a pressure as the getting the plan done, right? So, is there anything else anybody would like to add for future discussion? No guarantees, I mean October, but just, we've already covered, oh, Dave?
Is it okay if I plug one sustainable event if we go back in the agenda at all?
Yes, go ahead and plug one sustainable event.
This is a really good one because I think the city is partnering with Urban Ecology Oshkosh on a bat event at Sheldon Nature Area. That's going to be October 3rd at 6:30 at Sheldon Nature Area. So the city reached out and asked Urban Ecology to do some information about bats. I think it's going to be a family-friendly event. The bats are getting a little bit cold that time of year, but at the very least it'll be really educational. It'll be a nice activity outside. So. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for letting me come back to that. I just was making sure because I know we don't have a meeting before then. So, yeah.
Good point. Okay, well then, in that case, our next meeting will be on Monday, October 6th. Remember, anything that you need to get in on this energy plan needs to be to Emma by the 22nd of September. And I would like a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Cool. We're adjourned.